Learn at lunch with Aiken Schenk. Are you covered? My name's Ty Tabor, and I'm a certified specialist in injury and wrongful death work. That's kind of all I do, and I'll let my partner introduce himself.
My name is Austin Kurtz. What we're going to be covering today is Ty and I are going to basically kind of talk you through the basics of insurance, all areas of insurance. We're aware that our World Cup semi-game's on right now, so we'll try to make it brief and get through it as quick as we can and answer any questions you guys have and kind of give you the lay of the land. Just to let you guys know, basically we're going to cover personal insurance from the idea of auto, home, life insurance, just a brief overview of kind of what to look out for when you're getting those insurance policies, kind of what to be concerned with. Then we're going to go into the commercial insurance policies, which is a little more applicable to the group at Workuity here, and then kind of explain how insurance plays out in the personal injury cases.
All right.
Next page.
I think that we live in a world where it would be nice if you could take your lawyer with you everywhere you went. Get a reservation for dinner, buy insurance, whatever, because there's always a hassle. And for some reason we live in a world where people don't communicate very well. And so it's always nice to have your lawyer there to go. The reservation was for 7:30, and all of a sudden somehow you get set down. I think that's true when you deal with insurance agents. Insurance agents are licensed by the state of Arizona to do what they do. They do have a standard of care. They do have obligations. They're supposed to tell you the information you need to make intelligent decisions about what they do. I left my file on my desk. It's this big, and it's the deposition of one insurance agent in one case about one car accident where a husband and a wife were killed because somebody stole the car and was driving it incorrectly and ran them off the road. And the wife was driving and the husband was killed. And they were just, it was like a law exam question. So let's start there with insurance. You bought a car, what do you want for insurance? Has anybody heard the phrase 15, 30, 10? Those are the minimum limits in Arizona for insurance. And we just had a bill that went through our legislature raising them to $25.50 for the first time in 42 years. And Governor Ducey vetoed it. So we're still running on 43-year-old information, and the minimum insurance you need in this town is, in this state, is 15, 30, 10. 15 per person, 30 per occurrence, 10 for property damage. So let's talk about the types of insurance we buy. Liability insurance to protect your property, liability to, or injury insurance to protect you from insurance. When you go in and you buy an insurance policy on your car, usually what you're buying is coverage for the damage to your vehicle. A lot of times people have vehicles they don't want to insure, and so they don't. Damage to your vehicle, collision coverage. Property damage, which is property damage that you caused to third parties. And then you have liability coverage, which is personal to you for injuries that you caused to other people. You're driving, you're at fault, you cause an injury, you have whatever your insurance limits are. They're at least 15, 30. They can be much higher. Now, we can all talk, and most of the things that you see on TV and most of what they talk about is liability insurance. But there's other types of insurance that are equally important. Underinsured motorist coverage is a coverage that you can buy that will protect you in a first party claim, not a third party claim. If you get in an accident with somebody that's their fault and they only have 15, 30 with underinsured, you can buy your own coverage which steps into their place and make the very same claim and get the very same damages you would get from them from your own carrier. And then uninsured motorists is where you're hit by somebody in an accident where they have no insurance coverage at all, which is very common in Arizona, very common. And I submit to you the risk of any one of those three things happening. A, you cause an accident where you need liability coverage. B, you get in an accident with somebody who has a little bit of insurance but not a lot. Or C, you get in an accident with somebody who has no insurance. Those risks are pretty much the same. Those things are all as likely to happen. When you go to your insurance agent, they'll talk to you about liability coverage and protecting yourself. That's their stress. What they won't stress in talking with you is how do you protect yourself from the insufficient or absence of insurance on the part of somebody else. They don't like to sell those coverages, so they don't talk about them that much.
That UIM policy that Ty's talking about is as important as anything you can get, and it's something that's just not appreciated, especially in the younger demographic. People, when you're looking at insurance, it's a catch. You say, well, I don't really need it, it's just in case. Well, driving in Arizona with a lot of uninsured drivers, UIM is as important as anything, because that just in case is the only coverage you're buying there that's really protecting your own personal health, your own personal injuries. All these the liability insurance that you get is great because it protects your assets from someone else coming after you personally and gives you some insulation to when you cause an accident. But when, it's, my mom used to always say when I go out on a drive when I was 16, I'm not worried about you, it's the other guy I'm worried about. Well, that other guy coverage is a UIM coverage, and that's why it's so important to have. And it's something that just isn't appreciated and people just kind of overlook.
Look at it this way. If you go to an insurance agent and you say to the insurance agent, let's take two scenarios. One, you're a young kid, you're not married, you don't own a house, you live in an apartment, you don't have any money. What do you really need for insurance? Just enough to get you by so you don't cause some terrible accident. But what if you're married? What if you have a house? What if you have a couple of kids? What if you have a dog? What if you have all sorts of different things? Your needs are different. And the one thing that insurance people will do is they'll drill down like trust and estates lawyers. They want to focus on what's the value of your estate, what's it worth. And so let's just say you have $2 million in property and your net worth is $2 million. You need $2 million to protect it. An insurance agent's likely, when you talk to him, to convince you to buy $2 million worth of liability and coverage. And it becomes tricky because they'll start out with your cars and they'll insure your cars. But if you have a home, then they'll try to insure your home, and then they'll put the two together, they'll bundle them, and they'll try to sell you an umbrella. But what they'll say to you is, you need $2 billion to protect your assets. Well, what happens when you get hit by somebody who has $15,000 worth of insurance? Who's going to protect your assets now? Not the coverage you bought to protect yourself. That only protects you and your property. Unless you buy UIM, you won't have that protection. And it gets tricky. The same thing with UM. I can't tell you how many claims I see where people have little or no insurance. Other people come to me and go, hey, I have a $100,000 policy and the guy who hit me has no insurance. And I go, well, you only have 1530 in UIM, or you only have 1530 in UM, you're basically out of luck.
You started to cover home insurance a little bit. Do you want to kind of go into what a home insurance policy covers and why it's important that we have it?
Home insurance is basically to cover stuff like if your pipes bust, if you get storm damage, and it's not excluded because there are a lot of exclusions in homeowners policies, but it's basically, it's there to protect you. If somebody comes into your house and they fall or get hurt in your house, it'll cover that. If you have a dog and the dog goes out and bites somebody, it'll cover that depending on what type of dog it is and how it happens. Homeowners coverage protects in case of fire, any loss, any damage. It's supposed to restore you to your home. You got to be careful because sometimes if you have homeowners coverage, You got to take a second look at what your contents coverage is. They never talk to you about these things. So my key, if I was going to say anything to you when you talk to an insurance agent, go, what else is available to me to protect me? What else is available to protect me? I'm not so much worried about what I'm going to owe to other people, but what's in it for me? How do I protect myself? If you have your homeowners and your cars with certain carriers, they'll give you a personal umbrella. And that's a good thing to have. Now, umbrellas are very interesting because it takes your homeowner's coverage, your car coverage, and it puts it all together under one big umbrella. The only problem is it's a personal liability umbrella. It only extends the $1 million or $2 or $5 million umbrella coverage that you buy. It only extends to your liability to other people. You're in the same scenario. I have $5 million to protect me if I injure somebody, but if I hit somebody with $15,000 worth of coverage, I only get $15,000, or if they hit me and they're at fault, I only get their 15. It's the same problem. What I have in my office, it's called a personal umbrella policy. In order to buy this policy, you have to pay $250. You have to have underlying limits for liability of $255, for UIM of $255, and for uninsured motorists of $255. Then, if you fold in your house, to let you buy 1, 2, 3 multiples of millions of dollars of insurance. You can purchase that insurance so that it includes your UIM and it includes your UM, so that you're fully covered for any loss caused by you, caused by somebody with a little bit of insurance, and caused by somebody with no insurance. But in order to buy it, you have to talk to your agent and pay a separate premium for it, and it's a relatively insignificant premium. Most agents will not tell you about it, and you will be walking around thinking you have $5 million that covers you no matter what, and you don't.
And one of the most unique things about the umbrella, which Ty and I have experienced a few times, is sometimes in order to this UIM coverage we spoke about earlier, you're not able to get that coverage up to, you can only get a 5100 policy, let's say, depending on the insurer. But once you get this umbrella, it allows you to get that next step up. And so, those are the coverages they don't want to sell you, and any way you can kind of get the coverages they don't want to sell you to protect yourself, because they don't make any money on them. It's a cheap policy, the UIM, the umbrella, they're cheap in the grand scheme of how much of an additional cost they are, but they protect you against stuff on a much higher level than what you normally are exposed to.
The law says that an insurance agent has to sell you the same amount of coverage and the same types of coverage that he himself would buy if he was in your situation. See what I'm saying? And they don't do that. So whenever I take their depositions, I always ask them, well, what kind of coverage do you have? And the expert that they use is a guy named Lanny Hare. He's a really nice guy, but he hates my guts. But every time I take his deposition, I go, well, Mr. Hare, what kind of coverage do you have? And he refuses to answer. He won't answer. Because I know he has millions of dollars worth of all three of these types of coverages. I know he has all that stuff. And it undermines his credibility, so he just refuses to answer. He gets kind of mad about it. But we've never had to go in front of a jury and fight about it. But you can tell by his position that he doesn't think the agents are doing the right thing most of the time.
So the next area is going to be life insurance, and Ty will kind of lead you through this, but one of the big overarching themes of today is realizing where you are in your life and realizing where your business is and understanding the liabilities that you're presenting and how to protect those. And so when going through life insurance, as a young guy, an engaged guy, getting ready to start a family, kind of at that point in my life insurance is really important to me. It's something that I see as a staple of my insurance protection. But Ty has a little bit of a different view on it.
Yeah, as an old man, I could care less about life insurance. It doesn't do me any good. And I got to take my kid, I'll take care of my kid and my family some other way other than through some term life insurance policy that keeps jacking up and jacking up. And by the way, disability policies. I was just talking, reading some articles on this. A lot of disability policies, you get them when you're 25 or 30, and you pay all these premiums for them forever and ever and ever. But when you turn 64, 65, they don't provide you any more coverage. They end because they're only designed to provide disability payments to you during the time that you're working. And so all the time I'm getting calls from people who say, hey, you know, I had this disability policy, I've paid on it for 40 years, and they just told me it's canceled. And I go, yeah, because you're now past the age where you're going to, the policy says in there, oh, this is only for disability during the time that you're required to work through age 65, and you're probably 66, and so they cancel. Nobody ever told me that. Nobody ever told me that. They don't even tell you that when you're 64. So that's kind of how insurance companies go. It's what they don't tell you that causes problems.
So when you're looking at life insurance, I mean, similar to the disability idea is you're considering, do you want a term insurance, which is a certain amount of time, or do you want a permanent life insurance policy that goes on forever? You need to make sure that it has accelerated death benefits, which will allow, if you get in a situation where, for lack of a better terms, you're a vegetable and you're not able to, you're not dead, but you're not able to contribute to the familial income or protect your family, you can kind of accelerate that life insurance under the right setting. And this accidental death is a really important one that we've seen come up for people who practice extreme sports, are out in kind of an area where they're more likely to die via accident. My brother's a professional skateboarder. Accidental death is like right up his alley. It's if you get hurt via accident, the life insurance policy is worth twice as much, and it's not a very expensive rider, all things considered, to add to your policy. And so it's just kind of, these are sort of things that you need to be looking at, because when you go through and do these, write your policy, you're going to do it online, or you're going to do it through some broker, and they're just going to run you through these questions, and they're not really concerned with what you're covered for. They're concerned with getting a commission and getting out.
And they're not going to say, oh, hey, do you want double indemnity? No. They're not going to say that. They're not going to think about it. But think about this. Every day when you read the paper, somebody gets on their bicycle, they're riding around town on their bicycle, and they get hurt. Okay? There's somebody who needs double indemnity. I know 5 people that have been killed in bicycle accidents in the last year. And not clients of mine, friends of mine. Because they're out on the road driving, and if they have life insurance with double indemnity and their death is an accident caused by somebody, that's a big deal for them and for their family. So, you know, you think of dangerous sports. Well, bicycling in Arizona is a dangerous sport, especially if you're on the roadways in the city of Phoenix and most other towns.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Sure.
What's variable life?
Variable life, it's like a split between whole life and term life, and you can flip it back and forth. And sometimes you can start out with a term policy and you can turn it into a whole life policy that has a cash value, and you could go back and forth between the two. A lot of policies have options where you can change them at a certain point in time after you've paid in enough.
Obviously, you're at a little different age than he is. What is your perception on cash value towards, because obviously it's attached to the policy. If something happens to the policy, the cash value is, they don't tell you is you either get one or the other. You don't get both.
Right.
So, do you?
Well, every insurance company is going to want to sell you a whole life.
Absolutely.
They want to sell you a whole life because they want to get your money when you're young, and they want to hang on to it till you're really old.
Absolutely.
Because no matter what they're giving you back on it, they're making more money holding on to your dough and investing it and using it.
Absolutely.
So that's what that game is all about. And there is security in a whole life policy, because if you ever need to borrow it, or if you ever need to borrow against it, you can do that. It's kind of like an IRA to an extent. When everybody gets in financial trouble, they run over and borrow from their life insurance policy or they borrow from their IRA. It's stuff you shouldn't really do, but you do it because you're jammed up. And I don't know. I've gone back and forth in different wars with them, and the thoughts, I don't know. So invest your money. Put your money in whatever you want, and if you watch it yourself, you probably do better off. But who knows? Life insurance, it's a game. I can tell you that I've had doctors galore and lawyers galore, businessmen galore who set up all these huge life insurance trusts and spent all this money to get all these policies purchased. And for 10 or so years, they'll make payments on them, and then it just becomes too confusing and expensive. A lot of them come undone. And I know some of them stay on through to the bitter end, and people get millions of dollars at some point down the road. But life insurance depends on how old are you and what are you looking for. And, term is kind of like going to the casino. It's just a gambling deal. That's really what you're doing.
Except you're betting on dying, which is kind of not a fun bet.
Well, you said you're younger on the scale, so down here your money's lower.
Right.
When you're older, your money's higher.
Right.
So you need less protection.
Right.
As you get older, your money's growing. So at your age, you prepared, if you done correctly, prepared for your life, so you don't need insurance at your age.
Please don't make that assumption.
For most people who plan correctly.
Yeah, I planned correctly, but in a different direction.
So
A lot of you guys are going to be running your own businesses, so you have issues about who's my employee, what happens if I have an employee, that type of stuff. Are we going to move on?
Yeah. So we're gonna cover into kind of the employee side of insurance, which is probably a little more applicable to this group. And we're gonna kind of go over commercial general liability coverage, sort of what should you be concerned about, who's covered. It's interesting. Take the Workuity environment. A lot of the people working here, you're not open to a slip and fall accident in the same way that Trader Joe's is. But that doesn't mean you're without liability. You're without the opportunity to have injuries occurred in your place of business or through your place of business. And so this commercial general liability coverage can kind of cover a wide variety of things. It can cover the bodily injury and property damages that are caused by your work, by the work environment, on your work presence.
I slip and fall right here, so
Right.
that'll be covered under that.
But then it can also cover kind of the outreach of your business and the interaction of your business. It's that invasion of privacy, that malicious prosecution, libel, slander, false arrest, copyright infringement. It can cover the outreach of what your business does and the liability that it kind of creates by going out there.
Car insurance really only covers bodily injury and property damage, that type of thing. In a commercial general liability policy, there's so many different issues that you have at work that need to be covered. And I've seen cases where you've had invasion of privacy suits. Your competitors that say you're libeling them, and that stuff will be covered, which is very difficult to get any coverage for slander or a libel suit under your homeowner's policy, and impossible under your car. But that would be an interesting thing based on some of the stuff I've heard said at some of the accident sites. But there are unique coverages under commercial general liability coverage that can help you out that you might not even know are there. Like copyright infringement. I mean, these IP torts are turning, intellectual property torts are turning into their whole, a whole little garden variety of practice. And
Let me give you an example. We have a friend client who he had a leak of sensitive information. their HIPAA protected information got out. Having the right policy in place is essential because now they're on the hook for this giant lawsuit, but if they don't have the CGL policy in place that protects them correctly, they're personally exposed. That's the kind of thing that can take down a business if you don't have the right insurance in place. You really need to understand what liability, what opportunities you guys have to screw up as a business, and how can I insulate myself from the damages that can occur from those screw-ups. Something else that's kind of interesting about these CGL policies is they don't cover auto accidents. Ty and I were going back and forth about what auto insurance is necessary on top of your commercial general liability coverage. So there's 3 trains of thought, right? There's hired and non-auto insurance, commercial auto insurance, and personal auto. So your personal auto policies are not going to cover you in a business capacity, and they usually have exclusions written directly in them. Now, if your employees are driving their own autos for work specific reasons, you need that non-owned auto policy. If they're driving work autos, you need the commercial auto policy. These all 3 intersect in that you kind of need to be protected from each one. But a lot of us don't have, the law firm doesn't have any work vehicles. We only have non-owned autos. And if we don't have that non-owned auto and I'm asked to drive from the office to court and I get in an accident and I hurt someone, my personal auto insurance is going to argue, that's not us, he's in a business capacity. The non-owned auto is going to say, no, he's driving his personal vehicle. And so having the coverages to kind of be able to fight them out is really important to understanding it. But with Workuity specifically, it kind of draws this weird interaction of the non-owned auto insurance doesn't cover you when you're going from your place of business to work. So if I wake up in the morning and I drive to my office, I'm not covered under our employer policy. But if you work from home and you don't have a true office, where does that workplace start? And that's what Ty and I were going back and forth about today.
And the other thing is, you can fold in workers' comp, which is required by law. And I'll tell you, the only thing that I really know about workers' comp insurance is if you don't buy it and you need it and you don't buy it, what happens to you is if you should have had workers' comp and you didn't have workers' comp, they will make you step into the shoes of the insurance carrier, and you will have to go down and defend yourself in front of the Industrial Commission, and you'll have to pay every dime that the carrier would have paid because you didn't get workers' comp insurance. You're treated as though you're the insurer for purposes of that loss if you should have had it and you didn't. And that could be a nightmare.
So we basically kind of talked you through how the insurance plays out in the personal injury suit throughout. But I do kind of want to discuss points of takeaway. If you had one point to tell everyone the takeaway from this and, to take into their insurance buying ideas, what would it be?
I think if you when you talk to your insurance agent about what you need, you got to tell them the truth. Be candid about what you own. Be candid about what your risks are, and then ask them, what would you do? What would you do? Put it on them. I want you to take care of me like you would take care of yourself, and just see what they say. Insurance becomes really complicated after you make a claim. That's when you really kind of find out what your insurance company is about. One of the things on our list which we didn't talk about is if there's a claim, let's say you cause an accident and you report it to your insurance company. Well, your insurance company has the duty to defend you, and they have the duty to indemnify you, and they're separate duties. Your insurance company might say, oh, well, you know what, that claim's not covered because you were in the course and scope of your employment, so it's not covered by your own personal auto policy. And so we're not going to indemnify you. And it gets very risky. Anytime your insurance company tells you something's not covered or something's excluded from your policy, that's when you should be calling your lawyer. because I can tell you I've seen this many, many times. People call up and they say to their insurance agent, hey, look, I just got in this accident, this thing happened to me. What happens? Oh, well, that's not covered because that's not an accident, that's an occurrence and it's not covered. And a lot of times people just go, oh, well, he's the insurance guy, he knows what he's talking about, I guess I'm not covered, so I'm screwed, and they walk away from it. Every time your insurance company says, first of all, you watch all these big 5 commercials. We're on your side, you're in our hands, we're going to take care of you, you're under our umbrella, we're going to come over to your house and paint your fence if something happens to you. They don't do any of that. Their whole job basically is to pay you the least amount of money possible on whatever claim you have. That's what they do. And there's a great case in Arizona called Hawkins versus Allstate. And it's the Chisler case. And in the case, they got an old agent who had retired from Allstate. And he testified in front of the jury that he was trained as a young adjuster for Allstate. That we have 1 million claims a year. So this was a really long time ago. If you can chisel $1 off of each one of those claims, that's $1 million that falls to our bottom line. So that's how they look at things. And that case involved a $15,000 car where the person bought replacement coverage on the car so they could get the exact same car because they were in love with this car. It was like a Monte Carlo something or other, Grand GLX, and they tried to give him a Monte Carlo GLR, and they got into huge litigation over it. And the damn car was only worth 15 grand, but the insurance company had to get smashed for $3.5 million in punitive damages for not giving the guy what he thought he bought. And now we're going to get into the doctrine of reasonable expectations. Your reasonable expectations as an insurance consumer are entitled to be protected. So a lot of what's written in your insurance contract is subject to interpretation in the courts. So I guess my takeaway would be always ask your insurance agent, what would you do if it was you? And whenever he tells you no on anything, call a lawyer.
All right, guys. Well, I really appreciate everyone coming.
Thank you all. Thank
We've
you.
gone through our time. Thank you.